The Pyro Programme on LBC. It's time now for the 8th episode from our serial, Raffles the Amateur Cracksman, read for us by Robert Stevens. A.J. Raffles, hero of the England cricket team, has taken his old-school fag, Bunny, on a lucrative career of crime. But despite a run of successful burglaries, Raffles' love of the finer things in life leads the pair once again to face the inevitable. They must strike again.
Well, said Raffles, what do you make of that? I read the advertisement in the Daily Telegraph once more before replying. It ran, £2,000 reward. The above sum may be earned by anyone qualified to undertake delicate mission and prepared to run certain risk. Apply by telegram. Security, London. I think I said it's the most extraordinary advertisement that ever got into print. Raffles smiled. Yes, but the really original point is requiring applications by telegram to a telegraphic address. There's something in the fellow who thought of that. With one word, he chokes off the million who answer an advertisement every day, when they can raise the price of a stamp. My answer cost me £5 bob. You don't mean to say you've applied, I said. Rather, said Raffles. I want £2,000 as much as any man. I've signed myself at Glasspool, care of my tailor, and after sending the wire, I went round and told him what to expect. He promised to send the reply along the moment it came, and I shouldn't be surprised if that's it. And he was gone before a double knock on the outer door had finished ringing through the rooms. He returned the next minute with an open telegram and a face full of news. What do you think, he said. Security's that fellow Addenbrooke, the police court lawyer, and he wants to see me instanter. Well, do you know him then, I asked, merely by repute. He's got a first-class practice on the seamy side, and every blackguard with half a case takes it straight to him. Come on, Bunny. We'll choose your name on the way. Mine's Glasspool, and don't you forget it. Mr. Addenbrooke was a brisk, fresh-faced, resolute-looking man with black eyes that opened wide at the sight of Raffles. Mr. Glasspool, he said. My name? Said Raffles with dry effrontery. Not up at Lord's, however, said the other slyly. My dear sir, I have seen you take far too many wickets to make any mistake. For a single moment Raffles looked venomous, then shrugged and smiled. So you have bowled me out in my turn, he said. Well, I don't think there's anything to explain. I am harder up than I wish to admit under my own name, and that's all. And I want that £1,000, and my friend here wants the other. Give him your name, Bunny, your real one. Mr. Addenbrooke raised his eyebrows over the card I found for him, and his embarrassment expressed itself in a puzzled smile. The fact is, he said at last, I was not quite prepared to hear from men like yourselves. Candidly, and on consideration, I am not quite sure that men who belong to a good club are the stamp of men for me. I rather intended to appeal to, adventurous classes. We are adventurers, said Raffles gravely. But you respect the law, he answered. We are not professional rogues, if that's what you mean, said Raffles, smiling. But we would do a good deal for £1,000 apiece, eh, Bunny? Anything, I murmured. The solicitor rapped his desk. I'll tell you what I want you to do. You can but refuse. It's illegal, but its illegality is in a good cause. That's the risk, and my client is prepared to pay for it. He is Sir Bernard Debenham of Broomhall, Esher. I know his son, I remarked. Then you have the privilege of knowing one of the most complete young blackguards about town and the root cause of the whole trouble. Well, as you probably know, his father is said to have one of the finest collections of pictures in England, though nobody ever sees them to judge. On Tuesday last week I had a telegram from Sir Bernard. I was to go to him at once. I found him waiting for me in the drive. Without a word, he led me to the picture gallery, drew up a blind, and simply pointed to an empty picture frame. At last he told me that frame had contained one of the rarest and most valuable pictures in England, in the world, an original Velasquez. The picture is practically priceless, and young Debenham had sold it for £5,000. The deuce he has, said Raffles. Oh, yes, he confessed as much in the most brazen manner imaginable, said the lawyer. It seems the purchaser is a Queensland legislator of the name of Craggs, the Honourable George Montague Craggs. He's staying at the Metropole, and I've been backwards and forwards between Esher and the Metropole sometimes twice a day for the past week with offers, prayers, threats, entreaties, but not one of them a bit of good. But surely it's a clear case, said Raffles. The sale was illegal, and you can pay him back his money and force him to give the picture up. Exactly, but not without an action and a public scandal, and that my client declines to face. He would rather lose even his picture than have the whole thing get into the papers. No. I am to get it back by fair means or foul. He gives me carte blanche in the matter. And so, said Raffles thoughtfully, you wish us to steal this picture? The lawyer flushed from his hair to his collar. I knew you were not the sort of man, he groaned, but it's not stealing. It's recovering stolen property. Sir Bernard will pay him his £5,000 just as soon as he has the picture. No, it's an enterprise, an adventure, if you like, but not stealing. My good sir, said Raffles, shaking his head, it's true we're hard up, but the risk of exposure in this simply isn't worth it at that price. Double your stakes, and I, for one, am your man. Addenbrooke wavered. It's more than I can ask my client to pay, he said. Then it's more than you can expect us to risk. Then I think it should be nothing if you fail, he said. Double or quits, cried Raffles. Well, that's sporting. Done. Raffles then called for a railway timetable and announced his intention of catching the 3:20 to Esher. And I saw no more of Raffles that day. I saw no more of Raffles until 1 o'clock the following day. I'm fairly on a rush, he panted as he burst into my rooms. Having the devil of a time. Not a word till I tell you all I've done. The first thing was to get in with this man Craggs, and you can't break into a place like the Metropole. It's got to be done from the inside. Problem 1, how to get to the fellow. Only one sort of pretext would do. It must be something to do with this blessed picture, so that I might see where he got it. I thought that if only I could lay hold of a copy of the picture, I might ask to compare it with the original. So down I went to Esher to find out if there was a copy in existence. Sir Bernard said he had allowed a couple to be made, and he hunted up the painters' addresses. So, the rest of the evening I spent hunting up the painters themselves. One's out of the country, and I'm still on the track of the other. Then you haven't seen Craggs yet? I asked. Seen him and made friends with him, he replied, and it's just as well I did. The old ruffian sails for Australia by tomorrow's boat. I told him a man wanted to sell me a copy of the celebrated Infanta Maria Teresa Velasquez, and that I'd been down to the supposed owner of the original, only to find that he just sold that to him. You should have seen his face when I told him that. Did old Debenham admit the sale, he said, and when I said he had, he chuckled to himself for about 5 minutes. He was so pleased. He did just what I'd hoped he would do. He showed me the great picture, also the case he got it in. It's an iron map case in which he brought over plans of his land in Brisbane. But he's had it fitted with a new Chubb lock, and I managed to take an interest in the key while he was gloating over the canvas. I had the wax in the palm of my hand, and I shall make my duplicate this afternoon. And by the way, he added, you've got to dine with him at the Metropole tonight. I? Yes. Don't look so scared. Both of us are invited. I swore you were dining with me, and I accepted for both of us. But I shan't be there. Why ever not? I cried. You will dine in his private sitting room, which adjoins his bedroom, Raffles continued. You must keep him sitting there as long as possible, Bunny, and talking all the time. In a flash I saw his plan. You're going for the picture while we're at dinner, but oh, it's ghastly. To sit and talk to an utter stranger and to know you're at work in the next room, upon my soul. I believe I shall give it away. Not you, Bunny, he said. I know you better than you know yourself. Where shall I find you when I get away? I asked. I shall be down at Esher with old Debenham. I'll tell him to expect you by the last train. He shall give us both a bed, by Jove. He won't be able to do us too well if he's got his picture back. If, I groaned as he nodded his adieu, and he left me limp with apprehension. At last dinner time came, and I was at the Metropole making my bow to a somewhat elderly man with a small bald head and a retreating brow. So, you're Mr. Raffles' friend, said Mr. Craggs, overhauling me rather rudely with his small, light blue eyes. Seen anything of him? I expected him early to show me something, but he never came. No more, evidently, had his telegram, and my troubles were beginning early. But even as he spoke, there came a knock at the door. It was the telegram at last, and after reading it himself, the Queenslander handed it to me. Called out of town, he grumbled. Sudden illness of near relative. Well, I don't know why he couldn't come and have his dinner first. Like to see the deathbed I'd go to without my dinner. Well, must just dine without him. Never shall I forget the private agonies of the situation, the listening to my host with one ear and for Raffles with the other. Once I heard him. I spilt my wine and laughed at the top of my voice at some coarse sally of my host's. Even so, Craggs himself sprang up and rushed to his bedroom without a word. I sat like stone till he returned. Thought I heard a door go, he said. Must have been mistaken. Imagination. Gave me quite a turn. Raffles tell you about the priceless treasure I got in there? With the confidential garrulity of a man who has dined too well, he plunged into his darling topic. The monologue ended inevitably in the invitation I had dreaded all evening. But you must see it. Next room, this way. Oh, pray don't trouble, I said hastily. Trouble be hanged, he said. Come along. I saw that to resist him further would but to heap suspicion upon myself against the moment of impending discovery. I therefore followed him into his bedroom without further protest, and suffered him first to show me the iron map case which stood in one corner. He took a crafty pride in this receptacle. It seemed an interminable age before the key was in the lock. Then it clicked, and my pulse stood still. By Jove, I cried the next instant. The canvas was in its place among the maps. Thought it would knock you, said Craggs, drawing it out and unrolling it for my benefit. Grand thing, ain't it? Wouldn't think it'd have been painted 230 years ago. It has, though, my word. Worth £50,000, my boy, and I got it for 5. Heaven knows what I contrived to say at last. A tangle of emotions tied my tongue. Raffles had failed. Raffles had failed. Could I not succeed? Was it too late? Was there no way? So long till we get to Brisbane, he said, taking a last look at the canvas before he rolled it up. We returned to the other room. I had no notion of how long he talked or what about. Whiskey and soda became the order of the hour. I scarcely touched it, but he drank copiously, and before long he was stretched out on the sofa, fast asleep. I extracted the keys from his pocket. In less than 5 minutes, I put them back, after winding the picture about my body beneath my Inverness cape. The train was easily caught, so easily that I trembled for 10 minutes in my first-class smoking carriage, in terror at every footstep on the platform. Then at last the lights of Waterloo reeled out behind, and I sat back and lit a cigarette. I was alone with my triumph. To think that I had succeeded where Raffles had failed. Of all our adventures, this was the first in which I had played a commanding part. And of all of them, this was infinitely the least discreditable. It left me without a conscientious qualm. I had but robbed a robber when all was said, and I had done it myself, single-handed. In a glow I sprang out of Esher, and in a perfect fever I arrived at Debenham's mansion, and saw the front door open as I climbed the steps. "Thought it was you," said Raffles cheerily. "It's all right, there's a bed for you. Sir Bernard's sitting up. Shake your hand." His good spirits disappointed me, but I knew the man too well by this time to deceive. He was one of those who wear their brightest smile in the blackest hour. "I've got it!" I cried in his ear. "I've got the picture." "What?" he said. "Yes." He showed it to me, and I saw that you had to go without it. So I determined to have it, and here it is. I threw off my cape and unwound the canvas about my body. And while I was doing so, an untidy old gentleman made his appearance in the hall and stood looking on with raised eyebrows. "Looks pretty fresh for an old master, doesn't she?" said Raffles. His tone was strange. I could only suppose he was jealous of my success. "So Craggs said. I hardly looked at it myself," I said. "Well, look now. Look closely." By Jove, I must have faked up better than I thought. "But it's a copy," I cried. "It's the copy," he answered. "It's the copy I've been tearing all over the country to procure. It's the copy that would have made Craggs happy for life, and you go and rob him of it." "But how did you manage it?" asked Sir Bernard. I told my story hoarsely, for it was all I could do to keep from breaking down. But as I spoke, I became calmer, and I finished in mere bitterness, with a remark that another time Raffles might tell me what he meant to do. "Another time!" he cried instantly. "My dear Bunny, you speak as though we were going to turn burglars for a living." "I trust you won't," said Sir Bernard, smiling. "And let us hope our friend from Queensland will do as he said, and not open his map case until he gets back there. He will find my cheque awaiting him, and I shall be very much surprised if he troubles any of us again." Raffles and I did not speak till I was in the room which had been prepared for me, nor was I anxious to do so then. But he followed me and took my hand. "Bunny," he said, "don't be hard on the fellow. I was in the deuce of a hurry, and didn't know that I should ever get what I wanted in time, and that's a fact. But it serves me right that you should have gone and undone one of the best things I ever did. As for your handiwork, old chap, you won't mind my saying that I didn't think you had it in you. Now, in future, don't talk to me about the future," I cried. "I hate the whole thing. I'm going to chuck it up." "And so am I," said Raffles, "when I've made my pile."
The Amateur Cracksman by Ernest Hornung is read for us by Robert Stevens. There'll be another episode at the same time tomorrow afternoon on LBC. And as always at 5 o'clock...